Welcome to the Globe Girl podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell Lewis, and thank you all for joining. Hope everyone is doing well out there. I hope your week is going great. So, friends, it's been a while since we got back together and talked all things career. We were celebrating Women's History Month in March, and I chatted with some amazing women who are doing some awesome things in their careers. So definitely wanted to have that month to just step away and to just really bring forth some amazing women to put before this audience. But we are back now. It's been a while. So let's do a quick recap of our last episode together. So the last time we talked about things you should do, mentorship. We talked about an approach you should use to finding a mentor. We just really talked about what you should consider when you're getting a mentor. So a quick regroup. Number one, understand what mentorship is and how it can be valuable to you in your journey. Number two, find a mentor whose values align with yours and is someone you both admire, both professionally and personally. And number three, be sure that the relationship is mutually beneficial to both you, the mentee, and them as the mentor. And if you missed this episode, you can definitely go back and listen, but those were our highlights. So today we're going to talk about a new topic. And it was actually a topic that I was chatting with a friend about maybe a couple of weeks ago. And it was really about a manager saying something to a team member that I thought, wow, like they said that to you? And I thought about how I would never say that to someone as a leader. So it really prompted this topic of looking at some things that leaders should never say or do to their team members. So this is a mix of some personal experiences. As you always know, I like to put my own personal experience into the mix. And then also just some research online. So I've got 13 of them for you that I'll share. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, number one. So sorry. When I say this, I think you may think it only applies if you're actually going into an office and not remote, but that is so wrong. It applies both in a virtual remote setting and an in-person setting. But number one is acting like it's incredibly hard to say good morning, right? I know that sounds like a simple thing, right? But there are people out there who would say that they're not morning people. They don't want to, they don't want to say good morning because it's just going to spur another conversation. And then they're going to be, having to stand around and talk to people. I call BS on that. I think stop acting like greeting your team is something that is you're physically incapable of doing, or that it is causing you such a derailment in your day. Just say good morning, say hello, wave. And if you're if you're in a remote environment, simply just send out a Slack message or Teams and just say good morning. I really just think being able to have that, being a leader in which people feel like the door is open. I can say hello. This person is going to, greet me back when I say hello. Because I really think if you don't want to say hello to someone, it may make a bad impression on your team, and they may not feel like they can come to you when they need to have really important discussions with you. All right. Number two, do not be critical or give feedback without an explanation. So if your designer, just using an example, if your designer comes to you, or your copywriter or your product manager comes to you and they have a prototype, or they have a design, or they have some copy that they've written, and don't just look at it and say, oh, I hate this. First of all, you should never tell them that you hate anything. If you don't particularly feel like it has met the goal, you really need to focus on being constructive with your feedback and saying, okay, I think this is good. However, I think we may have missed the mark. So let's go back. Let's take a look back at the brief. Let's look at what the goal was. And let's just make sure that, what we've created aligns to the overall goal of the project. I mean, I know these things are simple, and you're probably listening to me and saying, Kyra, like, duh. But I hear a lot of stories of people being told these very things. All right. Number 3 is refusing to get down in the weeds. I really think that when you're a leader, your team wants to know that you're willing to work just as hard as they are willing to work. And when you don't, when you're only just standing on the top of the mountain, like giving orders and telling people what to do, and they don't see you doing it, especially when you're in moments of, say there's a presentation coming up. I used to work a place where we'd have to do these like sales meetings, sales calls. And a lot of times we would have to work late. I mean, these things would go, getting ready and getting the team ready to go would sometimes go all the way up until the day before they left, and it would go the night of, and we still be in the office trying to put things together. So if your team is like spending the night in the office, you don't want to be the manager that like left them and went home to eat dinner because you had to get home and, eat dinner with your family. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. We want you to go home and eat dinner with your family, but there are moments and times when your team will look to you to know that you've got their back and that you're willing to get down and dirty just like they are to get the job done. All right, number 4, comparing team members. So the example I'm going to give for this is, let's just say, for example, so someone used to work in a place and you leave that place. And there's a person that maybe comes to behind that person who has to take on some of that person's work, because we all know in the world of like corporate, the world of hiring, there's never, when someone leaves a job, there's never like a direct person. The work always gets split between some people first before they backfill the role. But in doing that, you should never compare team members and say, well, Sam used to do all these jobs. And he was doing a lot. He was getting it done. Well, guess what? If I'm Tina, who is taking on part of Sam's work, I don't care. I'm not Sam. I'm Tina. And I, Tina, have a different skill set probably from Sam. And just because Sam was doing the work of 3 people, it doesn't mean that I, Tina, want to do the same. Maybe if you had compensated Sam and given him support and resources, he wouldn't be gone. And then Tina, me, wouldn't be here picking up the additional work. Because you know what's going to happen next? Tina, me, I'm going to chomp the deuces too. And then you're going to dump Sam and Tina's work onto the next person. So comparison in that way. And then also just comparison in the sense of creating a competitive environment. Look, it's okay to all want to do really great work and to want to, have a team that like where everybody's like striving to do great work. But I think sometimes I have been in environments where you would have a manager who's like saying something about that other person in a meeting with you about like how great they're doing to sort of put you down or make you feel bad. Like that's not acceptable as well. So don't do that, leaders. And anyone listening, if someone is doing that to you, I would encourage you to speak up and say something. All right, number 5. Number 5 is very similar to number 1, but just in a different sense of don't bring an attitude to work, leaders. I mean, think about Monday. I mean, a lot of people have the Sunday scaries. And you know what? Even in jobs that you like, I think most people, if they could have a long weekend, they'd love to have a long weekend. So why don't you start the week off encouraging and with a positive attitude? And if you've got some at home issues, like you don't want to be a manager where like this person's not getting along with their significant other. Oh, they must have had a fight because this person's acting like this today. Or you're like being short with everybody or not saying hello or just like in a really bad mood. And that has a real effect on the team because team members people absorb the energy that you're putting out there. So you know what? Shake that bad energy off, bring in some positivity, leave those personal problems like at the door, because guess what? We all have them. We all have something that could bother us during the day at work that could put us in a bad mood, but you kind of have to make a choice to be a different energy and be different in that moment. All right. Number 6, don't communicate with the team solely through emails or chat. Personally, of course, as much as I love like being able to type an email, well, now in my new job, we use Slack like for everything. So people are like, I say having meetings in Slack, like reviewing everything in Slack, doing everything in Slack. And as much as like that is helpful and it's fine to do, I think you have to also be able to like understand when you need to go offline and say, hey, well, let's chat about this. Because luckily in Slack, you've got the huddle function. So a lot of times when somebody's trying to get me to give feedback on something and it just feels like, well, we're kind of going in a circle, oftentimes I'll just say, why don't we just huddle really quickly? I think we can wrap this up. If we do that, we can get to like the results that we're looking for like early on. So I think that's really important as well. All right, number 7, don't shut the office door, both physically or virtually. Now, you hear this all the time, and you've probably heard this so much. The open door policy is the best policy. Well, it really is. I'll give an example. A few weeks ago, I had someone on my team who had been out of the office one day. And the day that they were out of the office was actually the day that we have their weekly touch base. Well, I canceled it on that day because they were going to be out of the office. And so I just assumed that, oh, okay, well, we'll just pick up next week, because it's towards the end of the week. They're probably going to be okay. We'll just regroup. Well, no, the person on Thursday afternoon said to me, hey, do you have a few minutes to huddle? And I, at the time, honestly, had meetings all afternoon. And I was like, well, I could probably spare like a few minutes in between these last few meetings of the day. And, I said, but then we can also meet on Friday, tomorrow, it was going to be Friday, if you would like to have a full, one-on-one. And so we did that. And I think like if I had said no, it would have been a very different response from that person, because it would have made them feel like I didn't have time for them. So just another thing you shouldn't do out there as a leader with your employees. All right, number 8 is don't play favorites. Don't play favorites. You have to think about it, because as the managers, right? We're managers, but we're also people. So there are going to be people that you probably click with more naturally than you do other people that you have better conversations with. And so you have to just be focused on the fact that you're still a leader, and you still want to make sure that you have an inclusive environment and that no one feels like you are selecting another team member over them, and everybody feels, like they are getting, everybody feels like included. I think that's really important. And it's one of the things that like I really try to do myself, is that, and one of my team members actually said this to me. I'm really glad that, it's naturally who I am, but I'm really glad that it resonates with my team, is that someone said, well, what I really like about your style is that you make an effort to reach each of us in a way that's meaningful for us. So like, one size doesn't fit everybody. And I know that there are some people who want to have more personal conversations, want to, and I obviously, honestly, really like to know about all my team. I like to know more about what makes you who you are. And I mean, I feel like all that works together. It's not like there's a work you and there's a personal you. I think it all works together. So I think just making sure that you make an effort to like not turn into a clique. And I think it's a lot easier when you work in an office every day, because, manager might come over to this person's like desk and they might talk to this person, might go out to lunch with this person. They might, just like seem cliquey, whereas everybody else might be like, well, this person never comes over and talks to us. And trust me, like people notice that, like they notice it. You may think that they don't notice it, but they definitely do. Okay, number 9. Number 9 is like one of the absolute worst things that I hate. It's not just a manager doing this, it is just really legitimately any person scheduling a meeting over lunch. I'm gonna say that again. Scheduling a meeting over the lunch hour. Now, look, I know people go to lunch at different times, but I mean in the sense of what we would consider a standard lunch hour, which is noon, 12 o'clock, Eastern, Pacific, Central. I know I'm probably leaving one out, but all the time zones. I think 12 o'clock is still considered like the standard lunchtime. You may go to lunch at 1 o'clock. Sometimes they eat at 1 o'clock. You may eat lunch at 2 o'clock. But for the most part, most people go to lunch or take a break at noon. They just do. So whenever there is a meeting scheduled at that time, it makes me cringe. I actually have blocked off the 12 to 1 o'clock hour on my calendar every day. And surprisingly, at my job, people will still book meetings at that time. But guess what? I just don't show up, because that is my lunchtime. And I think as a manager, you shouldn't do that to people. And you definitely, the only time I think it's okay to do is if you've had a conversation with your team and said, or, if you're having some type of working session, we want to have a working session. Let's we'll get lunch. Let's work through lunch, and everyone agrees to it. But don't just set a meeting because you couldn't find another time, because that's often what people do. They go, oh, I couldn't find another time that worked for everybody, so I'm just going to book it at lunch. So if you've had the conversation with your team, this is not just for leaders, this is for everyone. If you've had a conversation with people and everyone has agreed to the lunchtime meeting, then that's fine. But if you didn't talk to anybody and you just picked the time because it worked, that was the only time you could find, it's a no-go. No, thank you. I know. Can you tell that 12 o'clock meeting time is triggering for me? Yes, it is. All right. Number 10 is you need to do more with less. That's offensive, like on all fronts, right? I mean, I know that hearing a manager say that would really, I'm going to equate it to this. Oh, you need to do more with less, or you need to be scrappy. It's actually, you need to be scrappy is the one that makes me want to actually scrap with someone, is when I hear people say, well, you just got to get scrappy, AKA do more with less. It is a very offensive line. It's almost just saying like, it's almost insinuating that a person is being inefficient. When we're not looking at, well, how many more projects are we giving people? Why do we want people to keep producing more with less resources? Because we all know that most times someone is left, a job hasn't been backfilled, work has been dispersed, and new projects keep coming. And then someone else leaves, or you may have layoffs and more work comes, and there's no help, no resources for people. I have drowned in the workplace before myself. I've seen other people drown in the workplace. I've had managers who have watched and let it happen. I mean, I've drowned. I think the thing for me is that, yeah, I am built a little different. I can handle a lot of work. I mean, I'm not generally going to like crash in the office or crash and burn in front of people. But on the inside, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. Not going to do this much longer, you know? So I would always say, right, as a manager, don't do that, but pay attention. Pay attention to your team. Talk to them. I always ask my team, you know, about their workload. How are they feeling? How do you feel? Do you feel like you're overwhelmed? Do you feel like you need me to move some deadlines? Do you feel like there's some things that we need to talk about putting on hold? Because a lot of times people are struggling and they won't say anything. So you have to like, this is where it plays a really big part in you knowing the people who work on your team and understanding, you know, who they are and sort of when they're frustrated, motivators, all those things. Because if you don't notice someone struggling and you say something like, get scrappy, the next thing you'll be seeing is a 2 weeks notice come across your desk. Okay. Number 11, do not see your team's talents as threats. Oh, they just want my job. They want to knock me off. I'm the manager, but they want my job. As leaders, whether you hired the people that are on your team or if you came into the role and the people are there, your job as a manager is to celebrate the strengths that each of those people bring to the table. First of all, the fact that you were hired, you know, or that you got the job means that you were qualified. Hopefully, you were qualified for the position of leadership, and that you're there because someone feels like these people can learn from you, and that you are there as a guide to help them grow and to develop, not because they want to steal your job. Now, any good manager is always planning towards like a succession. You're always trying to figure out who is the person on my team that could step into my role if I had to leave, if I had to go on if I had to take a leave, if I got another job, if I won the lottery and never came back. Just saying, it's all real, all things that can happen. So instead of feeling threatened, and I've been in a lot of situations, and I think a lot of times it is often worse with women managers because, women have been led to believe that there's the one opportunity, and that manager who has it, she's the one person that has that opportunity. So therefore, if you've got another woman on your team who feels like she could remotely be a threat to you, then there's like, nope, nope, nope. She's a threat, must stop her, and obviously there's room and opportunities that all of us can have. And perhaps as a manager, maybe you should foster those strengths in that person as opposed to trying to put them in a box so that they don't seem as strong as what they are. All right, number 12. I don't have time right now. Is it you don't have time or you don't want to make time? And it kind of goes back to the earlier example I gave. The best leaders have always made time for their team members. I go through this every day, every week as a leader in my organization. A lot of times my working time starts after check-ins, messages, reviewing things for people. And sometimes it is like 4:00 before I actually get to start on the work that is Kyra's work. So you really just want to make sure that you are building that time for your team and never really sending a message that you don't have time for them, because those things sting. I mean, I think like if you're working on something and you need to talk to them later, I think there are ways to say that. So, don't ever if somebody comes to the door or comes to the virtual door and knocks, don't ever be like, I can't talk right now. Or don't ignore them, but just, maybe just say, hey, can you give me 30 minutes? Can you pop back by at 30? Can we chat? Can we huddle in 30? If it's not an emergency, can we talk a little bit later? So I think that's really important. All right. And then the last thing is don't take all the credit. Celebrate the win with your team because you didn't do it by yourself. You had a group or a team of people, even if it's a cross-functional team, it was still, when it's a team effort, celebrate with the team. Do not take the credit. You didn't do it all. Nobody can do it all. So don't say that you did it all. Okay. All right. So a quick recap of the 13 things that a leader should not say or do to their team members. 1, act like it's really hard to say good morning, hello. Just be courteous to your team. Number 2, do not criticize without giving an explanation. Number 3, don't be afraid to get in the weeds with your team. Don't refuse to get in the weeds, I should say. That's the thing that you shouldn't do. Number 4, don't compare team members. Number 5, don't bring your attitude to work. If you're in a bad mood, take a day off. You need to take a day off, take a day off. But leave that at the door. Don't bring that energy into the workplace. Number 6, do not communicate solely with your team through emails or chat. Number 7, don't shut the office door both physically or virtually. Number 8, don't show favoritism. Number 9, do not schedule a meeting over lunch. Number 10, do not tell your team to do more with less, aka get scrappy. Number 11, don't see your team's talents as a threat. They're not trying to steal your job. Okay. Number 12, don't tell your team, I don't have time right now. And number 13 is do not take all of the credit. Okay. Don't. All right. Those were good. I really enjoyed going through those. I hope you found as leaders, because some of these things are just very like, duh, like, of course, common sense. But I think sometimes when you're in the midst of like the day to day, sometimes you can do things like the setting of the meeting across lunch. I don't think anybody really plans to do that. But I think a lot of times when managers are like super busy and they're looking at their calendar and thinking, well, the only time I can talk to everybody about this thing is at lunchtime. And so, and even sometimes when it's like, I'll just order lunch. Well, that's fine if you've talked to everybody and said, hey, everyone, is it okay if we have a meeting at lunchtime and I get you all lunch because I don't have any other open moments, but I really need to talk to you about a project? So I think it's just about like the delivery and how you communicate certain things with your team members. So hope you all found these to be helpful. I hope that if you're someone on a team and you maybe have a manager, that may be displaying some of these tendencies, perhaps you could speak up and just say, even with the lunch thing, hey, I know like your schedule is really busy and definitely want to be respectful of that, but is it possible that you don't book meetings at 12 o'clock? Because a lot of the team actually does step away from our desk at lunchtime. So it'll be really, nice, if we could maybe find a different time that works for everyone. All right. Okay. Whoa. Okay. So before I go, remember, you can head over to glowupgirl.com. You can access previous podcast episodes, including the career series. You can check for our social links. You can sign up to be a guest on the Glow Up Girl podcast as well. And also, if you are, hearing these episodes about your career and you're thinking to yourself, it might be time for me to figure out some things. Got a great quiz over there that I've designed to help you determine one of three things. One, you are happy, you are thriving, you're finding purpose, and you're really ready to elevate and you're just trying to figure out like what is next for you. Number two, I'm okay. I'm not really sure that this is the be all end all for me. I don't know if purpose is here or if I want to elevate. And then number three, nope, it's time for me to pivot. No joy lives here. I hate going to work. I have the Sunday scaries, the Monday nightmares, the Tuesday terrors. I really wanted to go on, but I feared that I wasn't going to be able to like think of anything else. Even though Monday was like the Monday nightmares. I mean, that didn't go, but it still worked. Okay, so when you take that quiz, I also am here to help anyone who wants a power hour of coaching. I don't know, maybe you've been listening to me talk about my experiences and you're like, that Kyra, she gives really good advice. I think I might want to talk to her. You can sign up and you can have a power hour of coaching with me for $75. So you can head over to the website. There is a link to email me, or you can email me at hello@glowupgirl.com. We can have a 15-minute chat. If you click on the schedule a chat link, we can talk there. You can figure out if, if I'm a good fit for you in your situation right now. All right. So that is all, my friends. That is all. I'm really glad to be back talking about career stuff in this episode. And so I will see you all in another 2 weeks. So until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.